Have you ever let a small secret slip to someone you thought you could trust? Maybe they seemed kind, stood close, and listened well, but later you wished you just kept your mouth shut. It's a painful lesson. One simple sentence spoken to the wrong person can change the entire trajectory of your life. We like to think that a friendly smile means safety, or that a coworker who listens actually cares. But sometimes the closest ears are the most dangerous, and a soft smile can hide a very careless heart. This is the story of a man named John, who learned that truth far too late.
John lived in a busy, gritty city filled with noise and smoke. He was a simple, hardworking man who would spend 8 years of his life inside the walls of a massive cement factory on the edge of town. His routine was like clockwork. He'd wake up long before the sun, wash his face with freezing water, eat a quick, quiet breakfast, and pull on that faded blue uniform, the one that always smelled of dust and sweat. Every single day, John walked the same path. He'd pass the same tea stall, nod to the same guard at the gate, and take his place in the long line of workers. His job was physically punishing, carrying heavy cement bags from one point to another, hour after hour, while loud machines screamed in the background. His hands were rough, his shoulders were constantly stiff, and his back ached every night. But John wasn't the type to complain. He believed that honest work was a blessing, and that silence was a sign of strength. He'd often tell himself that others had it much worse.
At home, John had a reason for everything he did. His wife kept their small house running smoothly, and his young daughter would run to meet him every evening the moment he walked through the door. She'd hug his dusty legs, not caring at all about the gray powder covering his clothes. Those hugs were why John never shouted, never complained, and never thought about quitting.
In the factory, John was the definition of a loyal employee. He was never late, never argued, and never caused trouble. Because of his own integrity, he assumed the people around him were the same. He trusted his coworkers, especially a man named Mike. Mike was a friendly guy who laughed loudly and always asked about John's family. Over time, John started to feel like Mike was a real friend. But the years of manual labor were taking a toll. John's body was slowly breaking down. The bags felt heavier, his legs felt weaker by the afternoon, and the constant noise was starting to wear on his mind. He didn't hate the factory, and he certainly didn't hate his boss. He just wanted a little bit of air, one lighter day to let his body recover. One evening, after a particularly brutal shift, where his back felt like it was on fire, John was walking home with Mike. As they passed the factory gate, John stopped, took a deep breath, and said something he'd never voiced before. He told Mike softly that his bones were aching and that the loading work was becoming too much. He mentioned that he might ask the supervisor for lighter work for just one day, just to rest. He wasn't angry.
Mike nodded, put a hand on John's shoulder, and told him he understood. In that moment, John felt a sense of relief. He felt heard. He thought he had shared his burden with a friend.
What John didn't realize was that Mike loved the feeling of being in the know. He loved the attention that came with having news to share. The very next morning, during the break, Mike leaned in close to another worker and whispered that John was unhappy and couldn't handle the work anymore. That worker, surprised, asked if John was planning to leave. Mike just shrugged and said, "Maybe he's just fed up."
And just like that, the truth began to warp. Tiredness became unhappiness. A request for rest became a desire to quit. As the hours passed, the story traveled from person to person, and with every mouth it passed through, it gained a little more drama and a little more fear. By the end of the shift, the story didn't belong to John anymore. By the next morning, the rumor was moving faster than John ever could. One worker told another that John was planning to walk out. Then, a floor manager heard that John was becoming a problem and might influence others. That floor manager, worried about his own reputation, passed the fear up the chain. By the time it reached the shift supervisor, the story was that John was turning the workforce against the factory. When the senior manager heard it, the message was full-blown panic.
No one bothered to ask John what he actually said because rumors are always more exciting than the truth.
Finally, the word reached Mr. Henderson, the factory owner. Mr. Henderson was a proud man who valued loyalty above everything else. He was already stressed about the business, so when he heard that a veteran worker like John was planning a rebellion, he didn't see a tired man, he saw a threat. In his anger, he decided to make an example out of him. The next morning, John arrived just like he always did. He punched his time card and grabbed his gloves, completely unaware that his life was about to flip upside down. Before he could even start his shift, 2 security guards stopped him and told him to follow them. Inside the office, John wasn't given a chance to explain. He was accused of betrayal, of spreading negativity, and of trying to sabotage the factory. No matter how calmly he tried to explain that he only wanted lighter work for a single day, no one listened. The decision was already made. John was fired on the spot. His final pay was slid across the table, and he was escorted out. His name was quietly blacklisted at nearby factories. As he walked out of the gate he had passed for 8 years, the whispers and stares of his friends followed him like shadows. In the weeks that followed, the rumors grew even nastier. People started saying he was fired for stealing or that he was dangerous. Doors slammed shut whenever he looked for a new job.
At home, things got dark. His wife watched him grow silent and hollow. His daughter stopped asking when he was going back to work. The bills piled up, their savings vanished, and John, the man who once saw the good in everyone, finally understood how easily trust can be weaponized.
Eventually, John made a quiet choice. He didn't do it out of anger, but out of pure exhaustion. One morning, before the city was even awake, he packed a small bag, kissed his sleeping daughter, and left. He went to find work far away, in a place where no one knew his name or his story. Weeks later, the factory manager was reviewing security footage for an unrelated issue. He happened to see John in his final days. He saw a man working hard, speaking to no one, and showing absolutely no signs of rebellion, just silent, honest labor. A heavy realization hit the manager. He finally called Mike into the office and asked what John had actually said that night at the gate. Mike finally admitted the truth. John was just tired and wanted lighter work for one day. When Mr. Henderson heard the truth, he felt regret, but he didn't fix it. John was already gone. His spot was filled, and his name was just a quiet reminder of a massive mistake. The story reminds us of a hard truth. Not everyone who listens to you actually cares about you. Once words are spoken, you can never take them back. Sometimes silence is the only real protection you have. Sharing your struggles with the wrong person can turn your honesty into a nightmare. True wisdom isn't just knowing what to say, it's knowing when to keep your heart's burdens to yourself.